Mochi is a Japanese rice cake made from a short-grain glutinous rice called mochi-gome. Traditionally, the glutinous rice is polished and soaked overnight and then steamed. The steamed rice is mashed and pounded with wooden mallets called kine in a traditional mortar called usu. The work involves two people, one pounding and the other turning and moistening the mochi. They must keep a steady rhythm or they may accidentally injure each other with the heavy kine. This method of making mochi is used in a ceremony called mochitsuki. Making rice like this originates in China, where this particular type of glutinous rice has been grown for thousands of years. The first mochitsuki ceremony is said to have occurred after kami, or gods, descended to earth, bringing the birth of rice with them. Last year, Japan House hosted mochitsuki during Tsukimi, where visiting guest artist Gary Nakai shared the art form of pounding mochi. Much of the equipment that we used was handmade by Gary and has been used for many years in his family. You can see all of the hard work that goes in to first grinding, then pounding the mochi. Although mochi is eaten all year, it is famous in Japan for being used during their New Year's celebration. During this time, a special type of mochi is made known as kagami mochi, or mirror mochi, which is composed of two spheres of mochi that are stacked one on top of the other with a dai-dai, a bittersweet orange, on top. This stacked mochi is said to symbolize the passing of time to the upcoming year, or the moon and the sun. The bitter orange on top symbolizes the family lineage because the word dai-dai also means generations. This New Year's decoration is often displayed in an alcove or tokonoma in one's home. On January 11th, a tradition originally practiced by samurai is celebrated called Kagami Biraki. On this occasion, the dried rice cakes are broken up with a mallet to offer many new opportunities and good fortune into the lives of those who partake. By this time, the mochi is rather brittle, but can be softened when added to zenzai, sweetened red bean soup, or ozoni, New Year's soup. The texture of this kind of mochi is soft, but extremely chewy. The idea of eating mochi on New Year's Day is thought to give you strength and tenacity throughout the new year. So then, what is the meaning of dango? Dango is similar to mochi, but has characteristic differences. In culinary terms, dango means dumpling, and mochi describes the method that is used to make them. Dumplings are made with rice flours, such as shira tamako, sweet rice flour, joshinko, Japanese rice flour milled from short-grain rice, or mochiko, glutinous rice flour made from mochi-gome. Mochi is made from steaming glutinous rice and pounding it with a mallet. However, there is a strong acknowledgement that dango, or dumplings, are recognized by their round shape rather than their cooking method. The dango is said to have originated during the Jomon period, 1000 BC, but at this time, nuts would have been ground up and dissolved in water to make the dumplings. Over the years, taro root and yams may have also been used as binders. The most renowned dango is called Mitarashi dango, which originated from the Kamo Mitarai tea house in Kyoto. The dango was an offering to the gods and was named after the bubbles produced in the spring water in the Mitarashi pond, which is just outside the shop near the Shimogamo shrine. The mitrashi dango is typically served as a 3 to 5 skewered balls on a bamboo stick and covered with a sweetened soy sauce glaze. This dango is made from 50% joshinko and 50% shira tamako flour. There are so many variations of dango and mochi that it can become very confusing. Here are just a few to name. Kusa mochi, made by adding mugwort. Bota mochi, also known as ohagi in the fall. Hanabira mochi, a flattened rice cake with a miso and white bean paste. Sakura mochi, a pink crepe-like mochi filled with red bean paste. Warabi mochi, a jelly-like sweet made from bracken starch. Kuzu mochi, jelly-like sweet made from the kudzu plant starch. Hishi mochi, a multi-colored dango sweet served on Girls' Day. Kashiwa mochi, a mochi wrapped with an oak leaf served on Children's Day. Today we will be making an mochi, which is a sweet mochi that is filled with red bean paste. We will be using the microwave method and believe that this is a quick and easy Japanese treat that you will love.
The first step to making an mochi is drying out the bean paste. So we're going to use the koshi-an that's here. And I'm going to show you how I dry it out a little bit, because the store-bought Anko is a little bit wet. And then we'll make the sweets wet. So you dry it out in the microwave. This particular brand is not too wet, so I think we'll only dry it for a couple of minutes. This is the way I like to get everything out of there. So I kind of, and then I squeeze it out onto this paper like this. Do you see how wet this is? You can see just it glistening like that. So I'm gonna take it and put it in the microwave for 2 minutes. So now it's been in the microwave for 2 minutes and I'm gonna give it a stir. You can see it's still quite wet, but it is a little drier. So I think I'm gonna go another minute. But let's stir it up first, release some of the steam. So that was another minute, and I think it's ready now. You can see that it's not glistening like it was. It's more dried out, pulls away from the bowl. And once it cools, it will even dry a little more once all the steam is released. So. Can you see the difference? Yeah, this looks good. And then we're going to weigh them into 25-gram balls and make sure that it's all ready for the mochi portion. But it needs to dry for a few minutes and cool. It's really too hot right now. So I'll be back in about 15 minutes. Now that we've given the Anko some time to dry, let's start making it into balls. Now the recipe calls for 25-gram balls. So what I do is I kind of get started here. And, you know, a gram here or there off is probably fine. But so there's still quite a bit of Anko left. What I would do with this is I would put it in a bag, plastic freezer bag, and then throw it in the freezer. Mark it and weigh it so you know that it's already dried and how much you have left. Now we're going to make the mochi portion of the mochi. And then while it's cooking in the microwave, I'm going to talk a little bit about rice flour. But let's get this started. We're going to take 100 grams of sugar, granulated sugar, 50 grams of Mochiko rice flour, a pinch of salt, and 100 milliliters of water. And then we're gonna whisk it up a bit till it's a kind of a thick glue consistency maybe. But we want to get all the lumps out. And then we're going to put it in the microwave for 2 minutes. You can do it on the stove top with a steamer. But this microwave method is very fast and it comes out really well. So I'm going to throw this in the microwave for 2 minutes and I'll be right back. So I'm going to talk a little bit about rice flour. So we're using sweet rice flour, glutinous rice flour, and we're using Mochiko today. And here's another container of it. And you see how this is nice and fine, like powder, like regular flour. And there's this other glutinous sweet rice flour. This is called 𝘮𝘰𝘤𝘪. And it looks like this. Very coarse pieces of dried rice flour. So this is where the sweet rice flour is washed and then dried and then ground into this flour. This rice is soaked and ground wet. So while it's wet, they grind it and then they dry it and press it, and that's how they get into these coarse pieces. But when you add water, it just melts. See how it just melts into just a white paste like that. And this really is a better rice flour to use. It stays elastic longer, but it's much more difficult to find and costs twice as much as the Mochiko. So since the Mochiko is easier to find, we decided that we would show you how to make this with the Mochiko flower. But I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about shiratamako. Here it is. And we're going to mix it up a little bit. It's not quite ready yet. You can see it's still a little cloudy. And we want it to be more translucent. So I'm going to mix this up a little bit. And then I'm going to put it back in the microwave for another minute. So now this looks perfect. You can see how it's translucent looking. So now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of corn syrup. This will help it be nice and elastic and help it set up. So I'm going to finish this up in this tsubu-an, which is used for grinding sesame seeds a lot of times. You can use it to grind up all kinds of things, but if you make things with sesame seeds, a lot of times you'll grind it in there like a mortar and pestle. So let me put this in here. This. And I wet the bowl and the stick a little bit so it doesn't stick too much. Good to get it all nice and mixed up and cool it a little bit. It makes it a little easier for you. Okay. So I'm going to put out a little bit of cornstarch. Okay, maybe a lot of cornstarch, but anyway. Get out as much as you can. Looks so tasty. Okay. Then I'm going to put a little bit of, make sure I have some all over so it doesn't stick to everything. Then make it into a log so that you can easily cut it into 10 pieces, which is really what we want. Going to use my scraper. Oh, that wasn't very good. So I'll do this one in 4. And then this one I'll do in 6 since I cut it so uneven to start with. Cover that with plastic so that it keeps its warmth inside there. And then that in there, and you kind of smash this down. Make sure my hands are not all sticky. And then push it down and then seal it up like that. 1 done. 9 more to go. So that's all of them all wrapped up. Just clean the board a little bit. There's all 10. The last thing I did was I brushed off the cornstarch on every one of these on mochi to make sure that all the excess cornstarch was gone. And this is the best part. Now you get to enjoy your on mochi with a nice bowl of matcha. I hope you make this at home. Thank you for watching.
Do you have an idea for an upcoming Japan House Shares? Please write to japanhouse@illinois.edu.